Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good day to you, wherever in this great world you are. Welcome to the Illuminating Microsoft 365 webinar today. Richard Calderon and myself, Joy Apple, we are here today to talk with you about keeping up with what's new in Microsoft 365. That can almost be a full-time job because it feels like every day you open up your application of choice and there's probably going to be something new to look at. So we're going to help you figure out how to get on top of that and share with you a couple of things that we've seen in the Admin Center lately that piqued our curiosity. If you have never joined us before, welcome. We are so glad you're here. I am Joy Apple, also known as Joy of SharePoint. So glad that you're here. I work at Pait Group as a modern workplace strategist and a trainer. I've been working with Microsoft products and technologies for over 12 years now, and I'm joined with Richard Calderon, my workplace twin. Richard, how are you?
Doing well, Joy. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, thanks for joining us. As Joy mentioned, we are workplace twins, meaning that we essentially have the same type of role here at Pait. As modern workplace strategists, our focus is entirely centered around customer success. So we want to try to help you understand how are you trying to improve and transform your business for bigger and better things, and then obviously how do the Microsoft cloud technologies really apply towards you being able to achieve those goals. So like Joy, I've been doing this for a number of years now, was also formerly at Microsoft for a brief amount of time, and then now we just love to do these webinars and again, engage with our customers as frequently as we can on all these various types of topics. So we're starting a kind of a newish journey, if you will, of webinars, as Joy's mentioned, under the Illuminating Microsoft 365 brand, where we're going to be focusing on this ever-changing landscape of things going on in Microsoft 365. And so to kick that off, we thought we would start off today's conversation really focused on how do you keep up with that? You know, I don't even think, Joy, that a fire hose is really the proper way to describe all of what's going on in Microsoft 365 these days. It's definitely, it's whatever's bigger than that, trying to drink from, you know, keeping up with the changes. But that's what we thought we'd start off with. And so, as always, we've got a poll. It's just something to help us get a little bit of an understanding of who's who in the room. And so you can get to this poll. There's a link in the QA window. Certainly would appreciate you responding to these when you get an opportunity. Let's see if we've got anybody jumping in on this just yet. Great, got a few responses. Just some general questions centered around all of the new things going on in Microsoft 365, and specifically, how might you keep up with some of those? So again, thanks for, in terms of the job roles, helping us understand who's who. And then a couple of just kind of straightforward questions. So how do you, assuming that you do, try your best to keep up with changes in Microsoft 365? There's a whole set of ways that you can do that. And we're going to talk about some of our favorite ways of doing that here today. So it looks like we've got a few responses coming in at the moment, and it looks like at present, overwhelmingly, the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, the Message Center, is heavily used. Again, we're huge fans of that ourselves. And as Joy pointed out earlier today, there's even some newish capabilities in the Admin Center for helping you take that information and then turn it into action. So we're going to spend a little time looking at that. Then in terms of how often do you spend learning about what's new in Microsoft 365, you know, this was just a little bit of a trying to get an understanding of what you do. I would say infrequently is a totally fair answer, quite frankly. And daily, you could almost say more than once a day. Oftentimes there's news and information that's coming out, what's going on. So thanks for those responses there. And then we're also just curious, within your role, do you try to communicate changes in Microsoft 365 to your users? And got one respondent that says, no, we just are going to wait until we see it show up. And again, I get that. That's totally fair. And then a couple of those said sometimes would need a little bit of help in improving on that. So that's great. Thanks, everybody, again, for interacting with us through the poll. If you'd like, you can respond to this at any point along the way in the webinar. And we appreciate the answers. Okay, let's jump back into the topic at hand. So, number of different ways that you really can stay informed. These are just a few at this point here, but you know, from an IT perspective, If you have the rights to get to Microsoft 365 administration inside of your Microsoft 365 tenant, then if you don't have it sort of front and center as one of those primary cards that sort of smacks you in the face as soon as you open the admin center, we would highly encourage you to rearrange your screen a bit so that those are kind of front and center. But the message center is, again, it's a flood of info. Oftentimes there's a number of updates that are coming out daily, and Microsoft does a pretty decent job of categorizing them and trying to help you understand what those updates are about and so forth. So again, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that, and certainly curious if you would want to weigh in on the Q&A as to some other ways that you found the Message Center to be useful. There is the Microsoft 365 Roadmap website. If that's something that you have not really visited before, again, going to show some of that to you. Would highly encourage you to favorite or bookmark that site and use that as a resource just to, again, help you stay informed as to where Microsoft is going with the product, and also to see, what has been recently released or what is currently in a rolling out state. So again, the Microsoft 365 roadmap is another one of our favorites. Product team blogs are just blogs in general, whether they come from the Microsoft engineering product teams or, Microsoft MVPs or anyone really who's just out there willing to share. Pait has a blog, Joy has a blog. We, do as much as we can frequently to just share things that we've learned, obviously like in this webinar here. So blogs are a big, huge source for being able to keep up with what's new. And then social media, I know, Joy, you're not a social media user in any way, are you, at all?
No, never, ever. In fact, we talk about blogs. I'm much more likely to find a little snippet that I think people find interesting and just quick post on Twitter or Facebook and or Instagram. It's easy, it's fast, and people don't have to take time. So there's a lot of avenues out there.
Yeah.
Social's my favorite.
I agree. I'm kind of the same way, Stacy's always constantly encouraging us to put our thoughts a bit more organized onto, a digital format so we can get it into blogs. But it is true. At times I'm just thinking quickly and want to do sort of a mini/micro blogging type thing, and we'll just post it on Twitter or LinkedIn. So again, there's lots of different ways to be able to go and discover what's happening to stay informed.
Yeah.
So again, Microsoft 365 Admin Center, the Message Center, it should just be something that's front and center for you again. How many times can I say the word center? Keeping up.
No, it's too bad it's working hours. Otherwise, we could play a fun game with that. Oh, well. We'll go back and watch the recording later and do shots or something.
Yeah, I think that's probably.
Stacy says she did.
Probably the most important thing to know, again, from the Admin Center, from our perspective, is that, again, Microsoft does a pretty decent job of trying to help you understand whether or not these are things that you really just need to have the heads up on. Hey, they're just trying to tell you that it's something to keep you informed, or maybe it's an issue of some sort that they're working on a fix for. And then certainly if there's something that they would like for you to plan for being prepared for change, which was one of the reasons why we wanted to ask that question, just sort of curious if you do, in fact, come up with your plan and then clearly want to communicate whatever those changes are to users. Again, this evergreen environment here in the cloud is both a blessing and a curse, I guess, if you will, in that, again, we can expect all of these great new features and capabilities to come out at a much more rapid pace than they ever used to be back in the old on-premises days. But with that also comes that very heavy burden as those responsible for IT and managing these IT systems. So again, Message Center certainly should be one of your best friends if it isn't already.
Before we go forward, I put a little thing in chat, but just today there have been 6 messages dropped in the Admin Center. 3 of them have to do with Teams. One is introducing Mac operating system native notifications for Teams, so our Mac users might be really happy about that. Yeah. But yesterday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, September 11th, looked like there were 5 or 6. So it's very steady. I don't know if I've really ever seen many days go by where there aren't announcements released. It's Firehose is a good name. Niagara Falls might be a good name for the amount of information that kind of comes through the Admin Center. If you don't have access to the admin center, if you are not, a SharePoint admin, of course, if you're a SharePoint admin, you'll see just the SharePoint messages, right? So it's focused on your role, which is really nice. But as Richard takes us through these slides, you're going to see there's more than just the admin center, lots of different ways to get this same information.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Message Center, again, certainly if it's not something that you've gotten in the habit of checking on a regular basis, or just putting a reminder to yourself to do maybe once a week or so, would encourage you to add that to your list of things. The Microsoft 365 roadmap, again, this is a public-facing website. It's where Microsoft, all the engineering teams do a pretty good job, again, of really trying to help everybody understand where the product is going. They've made dramatic improvements to this roadmap website over time. It didn't used to be nearly as user-friendly as it is now in terms of searching and filtering. So again, if it's been a while since you've looked at the roadmap website, would certainly encourage you to go out there and take a look. There's actually pretty much every time I've seen that there's a very good relationship between the message center in the admin center and the roadmap website, in that the description of those changes, almost always, at least as far as I've seen, will reference one or more of the roadmap items with the link directly to them, so that you can get some further understanding as to what the status is and when the expected release is and so forth. But again, you can filter, you can very easily look at the last added. They've got a big button here on the screen that allows you to be able to just go quickly to see, what are the most recent ones that have been added. And then there is a way to connect this to an RSS feed. Joy feels it's kind of meh, that this is an old school way of doing things. I get it. I actually, admittedly, just recently wired some of this stuff from RSS feed readers myself, and so far I'm finding them to be, fairly useful. It's something I would have to incorporate into my workflow. But again, we'll look at some of that too if you're a fan of using different RSS feeders. You could also, readers rather, you could always plug into the M365 roadmap. Past this, again, we talked about product team blogs. Really, you just can't go wrong. There's probably more than you would ever be able to read in any short amount of time just on this one website alone, the Microsoft 365 blog, which allows you to go to a number of discrete blog areas based off of whatever the product is that you're really trying to get up to speed on, whether it be Teams or SharePoint, et cetera, et cetera. So again, the product team blogs for Microsoft 365. Social media, as we mentioned, really, again, our favorites for going out and sharing the things that we know, and clearly for being able to keep up with what's going on, are from Twitter. This is just a handful, from Twitter and LinkedIn. This is just a handful of different Twitter accounts and LinkedIn accounts and people that we might recommend that you follow. No shame that both Joy and I have our own in there, as well as Pait Group. We tend to think that maybe we've got a few good things to share every once in a while. So if you don't follow us, or if you haven't, please do so. On the LinkedIn side, under people, you can't go wrong by following Jeff Teeper, Jared Spataro, Dan Holm, Mark Cashman, all of these guys from Microsoft's Teams, SharePoint, all of that, all of those experts out there are continually sharing all of the great things that they know, as well as what's coming down the pike. So please do go look them up on LinkedIn as well. And then sort of lastly, but really no less relevant, is there's a whole set of other resources online too. Microsoft Tech Community website at techcommunity.microsoft.com. Again, really, you could get lost in a rabbit hole quickly going down into any of these different little community sites. But there's also a very great series of blogs, again, per different products from Microsoft 365 on the Tech Community website. There are user groups. Where I live in Austin, Texas, used to formerly be the Austin SharePoint user group, or the ASPUG, and has expanded into the Office 365 and SharePoint user group. We'd encourage you, look for user groups of those types, Microsoft related, Microsoft or Office 365, et cetera, that are within your local areas. And obviously, assuming it's safe to do so, try to get together with them and visit and network and share what you know. as well as SPS events for like SharePoint Saturdays and all of these other types of events that really kind of get tied together into the amazing SharePoint and Office 365 community that loves to share what they know. So much of those, Joy, I guess, have gone online these days now too, right? You can get to countless, if not all, of these events online now.
It's amazing. So my personal goal in 2019 and early 2020 was, if it was driving distance from me, I was going to submit to go speak, be part of the community, join in to these like SharePoint Saturdays, M365 Saturdays, however those have pivoted. And for me, driving distance is if it's under, I don't know, 7 hours, because I can get just about anywhere from Oklahoma in 7 hours. It's pretty fantastic. But with, in these current times, global pandemic and all that, minor difficulties, things have pivoted online, which has been interesting. I'm slightly a social creature, so it's been hard for me in some ways, but guess what, folks? Now it's really free. SharePoint Saturdays have always been free, right? You just have to get there. They even feed you breakfast and lunch, right? But I was able to present for SharePoint Saturday Philly from the comfort of my office, right? There was the virtual marathon that went on in, oh my goodness, time has no meaning, March. It was a global marathon. You can go to YouTube and find those sessions. But we connected with people from all over the world without leaving our house, which in some ways is sad, but in some ways, it's pretty amazing. And it's pretty fantastic to see how this community, and if you're on this webinar now and you didn't know it, you're part of a really amazing community of people that go out of their way to do stuff to help each other just because we like it and we think it's fun. So yeah, all of these events go on for free. And you can join in, you can watch the recording when it's available for you if you can't be there live. It's really quite amazing. I'll stop talking now, even though I could go on about this all day.
Yeah, I again could not agree more. I mean, with all the challenges going on right now with everything happening in the world, certainly a side effect of that, you could say, has been this just incredible generosity around this community with sharing through all these online events, one of which is coming up next week, a big one that any of you have heard of called Microsoft Ignite, which is absolutely free. You just have to register, which is just amazing. Because again, if you think about democratizing the sharing of this kind of knowledge, again, you would have had to fit the bill for the ability to travel there, as well as the conference registration, and now you can just access it from the comfort of your home office. So certainly encourage you to do that as well. And then just kind of wrapping up some of this other information that we had put together for you. User Voice is an incredible service that Microsoft is one of many really large customers of this organization that has a website called User Voice, whether you've seen this before or not. They allow anyone really who just simply goes and just puts in your email address to sign in to the User Voice websites, in this case, to submit suggestions and recommendations for a particular product like Microsoft Teams or SharePoint or Yammer, et cetera, and these are sites where the actual engineering teams that are responsible for the product roadmap will actually monitor and participate in and pay attention. So again, it's a new world today, whereas in the past you would have to kind of just dream that some idea that you had might somehow make its way towards getting heard or getting voted up as an idea for an improvement or an enhancement to some tools like SharePoint Server, for example. Today, you literally can just go and either find an existing suggestion and vote it up, which the ones that have the most votes on User Voice certainly gain attention from the engineering teams. Or if you can't find something that is your idea, because maybe it's a brand new idea, you can easily submit that onto the website and then of course share that with others and ask others to come in and vote it up too. So but this is just a short list. There's a longer list of different User Voice sites that you can go to for various products across Microsoft 365. So again, encourage you to look at those too. And then other places on the web, such as webinars, which are on now, Pait Group, Joy of SharePoint webinars. On YouTube, there is a Microsoft 365 channel. Again, that channel is going to continually have updates from different product teams and experts in Microsoft 365. There's a Microsoft Mechanics, formerly the Office Garage series channel. And they rebranded to Microsoft Mechanics maybe some years ago now, Joy, I think, at this point. But really, as kind of a supplemental, can sometimes get extremely technical, which is great when you really want to get down into like the details of how some things are working for security or what have you. Microsoft Mechanics videos will go down into those depths there. So another set of resources. Again, we're happy to share all this information again with you here. So I got ahead of myself. We're not done. Let's go over and flip over to just looking at some of these again. So we talked again a little bit about our first and favorite one was the Microsoft 365 Admin Center Message Center capability. And so again, assuming you have the rights either as a global administrator, tenant admin, or someone who can log in to your admin.microsoft.com site, then again, when you're on the home page here, as for those of you that do this again, you know that you've got this sort of paradigm of these cards that you can hide and show and make available, and then you can change where these cards are displaying on the screen. And so again, if this one's hidden out of view, please don't leave it down there. Like just put it up top, front and center. They're probably, maybe become, if not already, one of the most frequented areas of the admin center that you want to just stay on top of on a daily basis. So as you can see here, in my demo at least, I've got 136 unread messages. You can go directly to that area in which then you can see obviously the much longer list here of items. And again, this is what we were referring to a minute ago. By default, you can sort and filter this however makes sense to you, but by default, you're going to see all the latest items. So here are the items here from today, the 15th, that Joy was mentioning that just showed up. They show different categories here that, again, this is Microsoft's way of trying to indicate to you that this is hey, just a heads up, just stay informed, just stay informed, or there's something that they suggest you might plan for this change in some way, okay? You click on any of these and it's going to pop open a little panel that again is going to give you a whole lot of detail here in order to better understand what this change is and how you might need to prepare for it and so forth. And so here's an example. Actually, here's one that doesn't necessarily have a link directly to the roadmap website. But I bet you if I clicked on any of these others here, I'd probably find one here pretty quickly. Okay, here's a good one. So turning off message preview for chat notifications in Teams. Again, in addition to all of the when and how will this affect you and what you need to do to prepare, this particular message center message has an associated roadmap ID here. And then when you click on that link, it's just going to pop open the web browser to the Microsoft 365 roadmap website, where based on the message ID, which you can see here in the URL essentially, and it's really just embedded it here into the search box. It's going to automatically highlight for you, which when you click on this particular message, it'll give you a little bit additional detail here, sort of when it was last modified and things of that nature. So really great utility in being able to go from the message center in the admin center itself over to the roadmap website, just to get a little bit, again, further detail about that. So really useful utility as far as we're concerned. Another thing you certainly can do again is you can look at ones that have been flagged essentially as of being high importance. And then similar to your Outlook inbox, when you've selected and viewed some, they can be marked as read or unread. You can archive them. So there's lots of capability that you here as an administrator have inside of the message center. Joy, do you want to kind of mention this whole neat little feature right here around the planner syncing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now I haven't done anything with it yet, but literally today, and sometimes I can't see things that are right in front of my face. So it could be it was there yesterday, the day before, but today I go in there and there's a little dot next to it. And I was like, oh, what's that? Oh, what is this? So now I can sync messages from the message center and have them go to me, or I'm presuming I could actually delegate this out to, you if I wanted to, Richard, and say, hey,
Yep.
check this out, right? And it's just another way to automate the sharing of this information. And if it is something that we need to take action on, we can come together, get that work done. I'm not going to pick on anyone, but I noticed one of the responses in the poll. What about, we just let the features show up, and if someone has questions, I mean, they know how to find the help desk, right?
Yeah.
I get it, because honestly, it's really hard to keep up with all these changes, and it feels sometimes that these changes hit, and maybe we didn't see that message in the message center. It just happened. But if you can get ahead of that, especially if it's something that's going to affect the user interface, all the better. Because then, especially if you're not on the help desk, I started on a help desk. That's a hard job. Not all heroes wear capes, okay? The help desk is definitely heroes. So if you could kind of hold back the flood of, oh my gosh, where did the button go? SharePoint's broken. All the better. What's this new start a new conversation button in Teams? That wasn't there yesterday. I better call the help desk. It's out there, right? So let people know ahead of time. This can help you get ahead of that without having to go in and check it all the time.
Absolutely. And again, talk about how Microsoft just really does a tremendous job at being able to use the tools that they have put in place in order to be able to, provide some value to, in this case, Microsoft 365 admins and people either within IT or maybe within your change management organization that would be responsible for being able to take action on these items in the message center. As Joy mentioned here, there is a button here that allows you to be able to take these items from the message center and sync them to Microsoft Planner. When you do so, essentially, there's a number of different ways you can configure this essentially, but first of all, to give you an example of what this looks like. So if you you do this the first time and just sort of take all of the defaults, it sort of just drops everything from the message center, the ones that are listed there, and kind of plops them in as planner tasks in this case. I'm trying to think of the word card, but these planner tasks essentially, which show up as these little cards in Planner. And when you click on them, again, those of you that have attended our Planner webinar in the past, if not, go to the Pait website and look for that. You can actually watch that video on demand. But you can see that there's lots of detail here. It brings the entire message itself here into the actual body of the notes so that you have that information. And then, whether there's some additional data and so forth that's tied to it. But what you can do here is you can then just simply, the next obvious step is maybe organize this into some different buckets and then certainly assign it to one or more people on your team with a due date so that you can just keep track of what do we need to do on this. If we need to, just come up with some simple messaging and help people understand. Or maybe it is in fact, it's some significant configuration change, on something from a security perspective, whatever it may be. It allows you to be able to take the information in Message Center, take it that next step further and turn it into something actionable using tools obviously like Microsoft Planner, which is really great in this regard. So again, it's built into the admin center now to do this. You can absolutely come in and at least make this a little bit more manageable if you needed to weed it down, filter it down a little bit. So again, when you just do it for the first time and just take the defaults, it sort of brings everything aboard. But maybe rather than all updates, you want to just simply filter it to only the major updates in your plan. Maybe you want to only include certain categories, such as things where you need to plan for change, for example. And then, as you can tell here, it's got an extremely itemized list of items that or products that you could also just reduce it down to. I haven't tried, but might try a little bit later to see if it's possible to create maybe a series of plans with this capability so that you can break it down by these plans are for teams and these plans are for, I'm not sure, so don't take my word on that one yet, but just know that again, we think this is pretty cool. So wanted to share with you where, yeah.
Well, and I'm thinking too, so I have a tab that starts up, it's not a tab, it's technically an app because I use the new Edge, Chrome, right? Whatever that is.
Yep.
And I created an app out of my to-do page. So when I start my computer, to-do launches.
Yep.
And so you may not be in the habit of going to Planner every day, but maybe you keep an eye on to-do, which is very sneaky and is grabbing your Planner stuff, and it's got a nice little handy link for you there. So, there's ways to make it easy if this isn't part of your normal work stream and you're a creature of habit, and get you there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then just to kind of round it out, we'll at least share with you that from the mobile perspective again, I use an iPhone. I think Joy uses an iPhone as well too. But the experience works the same for Android in that there is a Microsoft 365 admin app that you can download and install and sign in with your credentials. And amongst a number of things that you can really use this app for, as you see right here at the very top, there is Message Center. So again, you can use this admin app for a number of things to be able to do some management in Microsoft 365. But at the very least, using it for being able to come in and read Message Center items while you're on the go. So again, depending on your workflow, maybe you've got your phone in your pocket and you're going to go run an errand for lunch, or you're standing in line at the grocery store. And it wouldn't hurt maybe necessarily just to kind of read on, hey, some things that are new, and especially if there's some action that needs to be taken on that. So mobile experience as well, right? Great job there, Microsoft. Okay, we talked also about the roadmap website. Again, really we could spend a whole webinar practically talking about all the things that you can do and how you can really kind of filter and understand what's happening here. But a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight that I think are really useful is that Microsoft published a really great how-to guide on using this roadmap. So if you click this button here, again, I'll show you this, using this roadmap, it just pops open this little PDF. It just really walks through all the details and everything, filtering and searching. And, if you need to pull some of this down, download it into CSV, connecting to the RSS feed and so on and so forth, okay? As Joy also pointed out earlier as well too, there's a last added option here that is just going to filter for things that were new within the last month, basically, by default. So if you just want to, again, maybe once a month, just keep track of what's going on here at this point, you could use that. I've got that little quick filter here as well. And then, from every single one of these, maybe Yammer new reactions for a post here in this case. Maybe this is something that you're like, hey, I really want to be able, which I think that's a cool one, actually. Teams, for those of you that are big Teams fans like we are, know that you can do reactions in Teams. And there's a number of different ones, from laughing and saying that made me angry and whatnot. Well, Yammer is also getting this capability here as well too. Whereas before you could just simply do a like on a Yammer post, you were able to do more additional reactions now too. Interesting though, not surprising that it's not exactly aligned with Teams reactions, because it looks like here you've got celebrate and you've got thanks and things like that, which are a little bit different than the ones in Teams, but who knows? Maybe those engineering teams will get aligned on that. But you can typically find a more info link on a particular item, and assuming that there is, when you click on the more info link, it's going to take you to some other informational page here, like on support.microsoft.com. And then you've also got a couple of different ways here that you can actually share this information. So, if I just wanted to crack open an email and send this link to somebody here, for example, it opens up Outlook and say, hey, I'm sharing this particular roadmap item with you, shoot that off. I definitely would like to easily be able to also just from a button click here, share that in Teams as well, but hey, that's just me, right? Okay, so Admin Center, Microsoft 365 roadmap, certainly the blogs again. So, if you go to, just do a search, go into search and search for Microsoft 365 blog, and most likely the top link is going to hit you right here to this site. And again, this is a really well laid out site. Again, you could just spend forever going through all of what's being published out here on a regular basis. But why I feel like this is also useful, again, similar to on the roadmap website, you've got some actions you can take. So you can certainly just filter directly to recent articles. And then depending on, in this case, whether it's Microsoft 365 or even across Windows 10 EMS in this case, so it really kind of covers the gamut. Again, for those of you that have been in our webinars know that we've been talking about how Microsoft rebranded Office 365 as what they now call Microsoft 365. So really from this drop down, you're going to see all of the familiar formerly Office 365 set of tools versus Windows 10 and enterprise mobility and security, which really is the kind of everything in the kitchen sink that goes together in Microsoft 365 as a big service. But let's say you just wanted to filter into, I want to really understand what's kind of going on blog post wise related to OneDrive. You could filter that in, and then as you can see here, these particular articles are going to be very, very focused on changes to OneDrive, etc. So good resource in terms of blogs for keeping up on what's going on. And then, didn't mean to do that actually. And then kind of social media again. So social media, again, join our huge fans of being able to use social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. Some of you maybe are Instagram users and whatnot, Facebook. But LinkedIn, Twitter, by and large, Stacy, I'd say you'd probably agree the same, that these are places where we tend to post and share the most information. So regardless of how you use Twitter, maybe use TweetDeck or some other tool of some sorts, or you just use the twitter.com website. You can also just very easily create a set of lists, and a set of lists is just, based on a particular topic. I want to be able to easily go and see and find everybody that I've essentially added to that list. So as you can see here as an example, I've got one that I've called Microsoft 365. And when I go to this list, I'll just show you, I'll edit my list so you can see who's in it. This is a really ever-growing list of people. Again, you can't come up with a single list that's just one like this. You really got to have some sub lists as you go through. But Jeff Tieper, Mark Cashman, et cetera, a number of people, our good friend Sue Hanley, Caruana, et cetera. So just again, come up with your own lists and ways in which you organize. But this is a great one that I'll just click on to. At least once a day. Oftentimes I'll just have it up and running so that as stuff is floating through on Twitter, I can keep track of it here. And then similarly on the LinkedIn side, again, the list is just too exhaustive. But at the very least, go and do a search for Microsoft and Microsoft related sites here within LinkedIn. This one is obviously Microsoft 365 in this case. And go ahead and follow that so that those updates will also show up in your LinkedIn feed, and you'll get a continual flow of information here as well from LinkedIn. Let's see, take a pause and see if there's any questions or anything that have come up just yet, or no? Doing good? Okay, well, again, just continuing in the spirit of sharing. User voice we mentioned earlier as well too. So here's just an example of one. Joy and I were kind of in preparation of this webinar looking to see if there was a straight kind of all-up list of them that was easily accessible, and we sort of had some luck, but not necessarily. So just suffice to say, if you really wanted to go directly into a particular product's user voice, you certainly can just do a web search for, in this case, like Microsoft Teams user voice. It's going to take you here. There's user voice sites for SharePoint and To-Do and Planner and Yammer, et cetera, But these are those sites, again, where anyone really, can go submit feedback, submit suggestions to this website, and pretty much know that somebody is going to be listening on the other end. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a response or that it's going to be something that's going to be considered a high priority or whatnot. But it is a good utility, and it also really helps to keep track of what's potentially coming and what's potentially changing. So as an example, if you clicked on top ideas in Teams, it's going to immediately filter this list by what are the highest voted suggestions or feedback that has recently been submitted. So here's one for replying to a specific message in chat on the desktop, because you can actually do that in the mobile app. I believe you can swipe and specifically respond to a particular chat item in a channel or whatnot, but it's not apparently something you do in the desktop app. So as you can see, this person, Alex from Teams Engineering, said that it's on the backlog and gave a response, so on and so forth. So again, what you do is you just have to go in, hit sign in. You can sign in with your email address. So if I signed in with Pait Group, for example, and then once you're signed in, you have a certain number of votes per day. I forget what that is, but you can say, yes, I want to vote. As you can see, I have voted for this one already. And I voted for a number of these top ones already. But you know what? I'm going to vote for that one too. I like
I
that.
think you should.
Yeah, I'm going to bump that one up to 26,524 now in this case.
Put that in the put that one in the chat. Let's all go vote for it.
This one here?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do
I
that.
think that's a good idea.
Let's go vote that one up. I'm going to make that one and push. So go ahead and click on that link if you would, everybody. Sign into User Voice and vote these up. But again, just another one of those tools that's can be really useful for trying to stay up to date on maybe not necessarily what has been committed to any of the roadmaps just yet, but certainly ones that they're either thinking about or they've got some plans for making some updates. Another good utility here, useful website too. We mentioned obviously all the plethora of video content that's out there now as well too. So YouTube is just it's a great source for being able to stay up to date on what's going on. Microsoft 365 has its own channel out there, and there's just a number of, again, kind of countless related channels, such as Microsoft Mechanics. Coffee in the Cloud is another one that comes to mind around adoption, and obviously Pait Group has our own channel as well too. So I would encourage you to just go out to YouTube, do some exploring around Microsoft 365, and looking for this content. I mean, not coincidentally, here's a very recent video here that says what's new with Microsoft 365 again. So good stuff to go. Okay, and then it just would not be complete. And again, we have to somewhat shamelessly plug that Pait Group. We do our best as well too to help you stay informed on what's going on, at least from our perspective and from our experience working with our customers. So if you would go to the paitgroup.com website, we've got a blog out here as well too. And again, I'm sure for most of you who are here on our webinar, you probably have already seen this website and probably already regularly stay up to date on what's going on. But there's lots of great content that's been out here from really since Mark and Stephanie started writing blogs way back at this point now. So, but we're keeping up to date on these as well too, as frequently as we can. Okay, anything that I've been missing? Any kind of big ones that I've missed here at this point, Joy, that you can think of?
I don't think so. I think the only thing that I would add, and this may be just me, but I do feel when it comes to the social media stuff, Teams. See, Teams is internal social media in some ways. That's right. But LinkedIn and Twitter. LinkedIn is a great place to build relationships with people a little bit more than maybe Twitter. That said, on my Twitter feed, a lot of the people out there, we comment on each other's posts a lot, and it feels like there is that, virtual friendship that's come about. But I'm still connected to people that I worked with when I started in IT 13 years ago, 14 years ago. We still share information. And it's not so much someone that we'd sit down and have a phone call with, but it's a great way to, I don't want to overuse the word out there today, but network, and just to really build those professional relationships. So there's definitely a difference between Twitter and LinkedIn in my mind when it comes to that. I don't know if that's just an odd perspective, but it really is a great place to kind of build those professional relationships.
I would echo that. I would say that, from a social media perspective, I was one of those a little bit latecomers to these platforms, even joined Facebook relatively late because of you. Maybe it's been, 10, 12-ish years now or so, but it's been around a long time. And the same thing for Twitter. I've had a Twitter account really for a really long time as well too, but really didn't start just embracing and getting into using it until recent years. And, again, because so many people are just so willing to share what they've learned, what they know, their perspectives on sort of what's good and what's not so great and what's working, what's not working. It's just wealth of information out there. And I remember hearing at one time a friend of mine who said, for Twitter, it's just like, think of it as this kind of continually flowing stream, right? And this information is going to kind of come by when you step out there to look at it, but don't stress too much if you're just not staying up to speed, because you never will, obviously. as we showed here today, just like with changes in Microsoft 365, there's so much happening all the time. It can sometimes be daunting and overwhelming to stay up with what's going on. So social media sites like Twitter and LinkedIn, again, use them for the purposes of what they are and networking and staying up to speed, but don't force yourself to feel like, well, I've got to follow every single thing that's being posted by the Microsoft 365 Twitter account or et cetera. Again, that information is going to be there. It's available for you. It's just this ongoing flow of information. So once I thought about it in that perspective, I felt a little bit less anxiety, to be quite frank. Yeah, because again, there's so much to stress about in the world. I mean, why stress about these things? These are fun. These are awesome things to be doing.
Exactly. And I'll tell them myself. So on Twitter, I'm bad about going, oh, I really want to read this, but not right now. Because I'm on Twitter to scroll, consume something really fast, and then go back to whatever I was doing. Yeah. So I will open up that link, especially if it's a Microsoft product blog or something from one of the Microsoft professionals out there. I will forward that to my work email. So that way I know I've got a record of it in email. So when I'm going through my email trying to catch up on stuff, I'm like, oh, I need to read this article. Sure. And then I'm more in that it's do some work time mind frame.
Yep.
And it works, right? Whatever works for you.
Agreed, right? It's whatever works for you. Actually, you just triggered something that I realized I did skip over, was this notion of Joy's kind of meh use of RSS feeds. But it is true, if that is something that you have gotten to where you found real value and accustomed to doing them, then RSS feeds also can be a great way to stay on top of what's going on. And just a couple of examples of that here. So that Edge is basically built on the Chromium browser engine, same as obviously what Google Chrome is built on. You can install Google extensions or add-ins, whatever they call them, into Microsoft Edge. And so one of the ones that I've installed here is a RSS Feed Reader from, I think it's called Feeder for that matter. So I just did a search for this extension. Again, just an example here is I've got a few different resources, the roadmap website, RSS Feed, the blog from Microsoft 365, maybe some of the latest blog info from the tech community. And so in this example here, you can see that I've got, fairly one-click access to get to a lot of this information here. If I want to really read this article about, what Microsoft is doing for helping NFL football games, then you've got that here easily in your feed. You also can obviously use, any RSS feed tools that are just your favorites. For example, I've got here somewhere, where have I got it? There it is. I've got Feedly. So, Feedly is something that I actually started off using on my mobile app, my mobile device. It was, search for feedly.co or something in the App Store and then pull that up. But in this case, this is, the website version of that feed reader. And again, as you can see here, I've got a feed grouping called Microsoft 365, and I can use that easily to also be able to just use this and stay informed and, can change the views of these so I can more easily consume this information. This could be, Joy, one way that maybe, as opposed to emailing them to yourself, you can mark as read later, right? And so it's the same kind of idea if you did that from a Twitter perspective. You also can, if you wanted to take advantage of the fact that there's also a really nifty to-do add-in for Chrome, and of course it works with Edge as well too, which would allow you to take any web page for that matter and then drop that URL into your Microsoft to-do tasks as something that maybe you might want to follow up on later, okay? So maybe as an example here, I might say this particular article here is something that I really want to keep track of, so I can go up here and say I want to add this to do. I click on that. It's going to give me the URL to this. And then right now my to-do is not signed in as me over here on my other screen, but regardless, you could choose a list for this to go to, et cetera, and drop it into to-do. So again, there are really just countless ways to be able to keep track, depending on what style works best for you, of all this information. But hey, take advantage of some of these tools. They're really great. Okay, I think we are pretty much near, if not at the end of what we were hoping to share with you today. So what's coming up? What's going on? What is this over here on the left? This some kind of an event?
Goodness, it's a thing that's happening. And guess what, people? It's actually happening live or virtually, whichever you prefer. I know, because we're just crazy people. And we're going to do it. So the North American Collaboration Summit, it's coming up at the end of this month. This very month. You don't have to wait weeks and weeks and weeks. Branson, Missouri, almost smack dab in the middle of the country. So again, it's going to be virtual sessions. Microsoft has given NACS space on its community teams. Tenet. So there's going to be channels. There's going to be sessions that you can join remotely. But we're also going to be there. Some of us, not looking at anyone in particular, but some of us will be there live. I'm going to be there. It's a pretty easy Jeep drive for me. I'm going to be presenting a couple of sessions. I know you're going to be participating virtually. It's going to be fantastic. We're excited.
Absolutely. I couldn't make it, and I'm regretful of that, but nonetheless, we'll certainly be joining in and participating in. Joy's eye-rolling she's eye-rolling at me at the moment on that. I'm going to hear about that later for sure. But nonetheless, would certainly encourage you. Pait Group is one of the primary sponsors of that event. It's going to be great. There's going to be lots of great information and knowledge to share. So please go register at collabsummit.org. And I'm going
to say too, if you're on the fence, if you're close enough, or you think you could get there, but you're just not sure, Mark Rackley, who this was his, brainchild years ago, and it's been wonderful. Every year it gets better and better. There are going to be hand sanitizing stations everywhere. I do believe he even has branded masks as part of the swag. I mean, if I could lure you into, I ordered like hundreds of Joy of SharePoint stickers in January. They came in February, or maybe February, then they came in March, and I've not been able to give them to anyone. So I'm going to be there handing out stickers. It's going to be like, I'm going to throw them at people. Please take a sticker.
Joy of SharePoint stickers.
It's going to be safe, though. You could like sanitize them, I guess, after. Maybe. We're going to be socially responsible, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm again regretful for missing, but I know it's going to be a great event. So if you are in the area or can make that event in person, definitely don't miss. Okay, so as always, there's a number of different ways to get in touch with us. Certainly would encourage you please to follow us on Twitter. Those QR codes take us directly to our LinkedIn profile, so please connect with us. We love to connect with each and every one of you, or obviously you can reach out to us at our paitgroup.com email address. I believe, Stacy, we're taking next week off because of Ignite. So we would like for you all to make sure to sign up for Ignite sessions and go just be a sponge and absorb all the goodness coming from Microsoft. But I think we're back 2 weeks from now, also in the same time frame of NACS, for that matter, on the 29th. And I think we just agreed that we're probably going to focus on Teams governance as a conversation during that session.
So excited.
Don't know that Joy will be able to make it because she will be doing amazing things in person in Branson that day. But I will certainly help lead that webinar. And if I can find someone else to help join and contribute to that, I'll do that as well. But please do look for that invite and sign up for that webinar as well if you're not already signed up for some of the amazing NACS sessions that day. Okay, fantastic.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and week.